thank you guys so much for coming to learn a little bit about pretty much how we can help your industry, whether it comes down from financing or employee benefits, or whether there's grants that you're interested in, or general, anything about finance. So if you have any questions, please feel free to raise your hand in the middle of the presentation. We're also going to have a formal Q&A at the end. So we're just going to jump right into it. So some of us are here on behalf of RBC, but we always really like to make sure that we're giving you a diverse set of kind of thoughts and financial perspective. So we're represented by ADP is with us today, Payroll Solutions, Granted, who does a fantastic grants, and then accounting firms as well, which is absolutely fantastic. So we're just going to jump right into it. And I believe we're starting with Granted.
Oh, excellent.
Cool. Here you go, my ladies.
Yes. So I recognize some faces from the presentation this morning. This presentation is just slightly different. There might be a little bit of overlap, and really kind of geared towards growth businesses in the brewing industry. So 1% increase in pricing results in 8 to 12% increase in operating profits. And so this was a study that was done by McKinsey, a consulting firm, probably about 5 or 6 years ago, and they were looking at S&P 500 companies, and that's what they had discovered. And so the interesting thing, though, is I did my own little study on what about reducing the cost of operating costs, variable costs, and that works with 7.5 to 10% increase in your profit as well. And so one of the things that I found was interesting about the study is they're talking about, well, you can increase your prices with your client base, and that in that case, the market is in control. But you can actually find ways to reduce your own costs, and how would you do that? And so what we do here at Granted is we help businesses in Western Canada identify grant programs as they grow. And so a lot of the things that people don't think about is they think, and definitely RBC, great source for funding in terms of loans. There's a variety of different programs from the government as well, but grants is one that a lot of people don't want to deal with because it's kind of like dealing with scholarship applications, or it's one that people just don't have time for. But it's really important because it is non-dilutive, and it is essentially money that the government has set aside for businesses in Canada to apply for. It helps to offset risks. So a lot of you guys might be developing a unique way of brewing, or maybe it's a different type of flavor, or maybe it's a process that you guys have developed and it's really quite unique. There could be funding available for that. Impacting your bottom line. Who in this room wants to make more money? Like actually have money come into their pocket and not just like to staff and to suppliers. Yeah, okay. So that one's probably going to be more important to you. Creating jobs, and so again, the government is willing to provide funding if you are able to create jobs, right? Reduce that unemployment rate, and then also the opportunity for you to put Canada on the map by exporting products or taking your products outside of Canada into the States, maybe across Canada as well. And so the opportunity is for you guys to make more money, pay more taxes because we're in Canada, and they make money, and everyone's like happy about that. So common misconceptions is that when I started this consulting firm, I thought, grants are probably only for the companies that are really unique to developing something that's super unique. So like the Teslas of the world, the Apples of the world, and that's just not the case. There are grants, assuming that you've been registered in business for at least a year, every single one of you guys could immediately apply for $10,000 to $15,000 in grant funding, okay? There's also a misconception that it's only available for young people or women or a specific demographic, like you have to be Aboriginal to qualify for grants. There definitely are programs like that, but that's not really true that it's only for them. Nonprofit organizations, yes, big bucket of money, and there are certain grants that some companies can apply for as a for-profit, but there are ones that are reserved only for charities and nonprofits. And so that's a common misconception as well. Things that you guys are probably wanting, like I want to buy a building or I want to buy a piece of equipment. Unfortunately, I haven't seen very many grant programs that support that. So when you are looking at equipment and things like that, you need to speak to RBC or BDC or other loan entities to be able to assist with that. I haven't seen very much in terms of grants. They used to have a program, George probably will speak to it a little bit later, but to do a shred, and they used to allow for some capital expenditures, no longer. And then also the other thing is that grants are really just like a one-hit wonder. So you apply for one thing and then, okay, that's all I qualify for. And what we've seen is some of the companies that we work with, where they go and maybe they apply for the grant on their own, they do one and they're like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm kind of done. I don't want to do that again. And we've worked with breweries where we secured over $150,000 for them over the course of a few years. So it really does need to kind of be part of your plan. Here's a full set of reasons why people don't want to get it, right? So they can't find it, they apply too late, it's not a really good fit for what it is that they're doing, there's a lot of changes to it, and when you're not successful in applying yourself or putting the time into it, you're just like, I don't want to do this again. I'd rather go and spend more time developing my products or building my market. So some tips that are a little bit different from this morning's presentation is definitely you still need to know your goals and your plans, but for a little bit of a longer time frame. So this morning I spoke to younger brewers and I was like 6 to 12 months. You kind of need to know that. When you are a growing brewery, you need to look at 12 to 24 months. And part of the reason for that there are programs where they'll say, what do you want to do in 6 months? And then we'll give you funding from that 6-month period onwards. So if you think of things that are too short term, the grant approval probably won't come in time for you guys to be able to access that funding. There are hiring, training, market expansion grants, R&D, and innovation grants available to each one of you. Okay, so know that there are different buckets for different things, and sometimes the grants will also allow you to overlap. So you may have a hiring grant for someone who's helping you with digital marketing, and then you get another grant for marketing, and you can kind of put the 2 and 2 together to even reduce your costs further. Research, really important. It's not about just blocking off time once a year to research, because grant programs change very regularly. I will tell you, some of the grant programs that we're working on right now, they're active grant programs. If you go on the website, the information's wrong. They're like, oh, you have to be done these activities by March. And I'm like, okay. They get on the phone with them and I go, so activities need to be done by March? And they go, no, it's 12 months. Like, your website's wrong. And they're like, oh. So, you got to get on that research, and you got to make sure that you talk to people about what you want to do and if it makes sense for your company. Then also identifying resources. So it's not about just, oh, I'm just going to apply for a grant and they're going to give me $100,000 and that's all I need to do about it. You may need to put people into those activities. You may need to give a little to get a little. So understand what you're able to manage. It's not about applying for everything and anything that you qualify for. And also be flexible with the way that you leverage the grant. So meaning if you are going to be hiring someone, they may say it has to be someone that starts after November 1st. You may be a little bit flexible with that. So make sure that fits the criteria. Don't go and hire them and then go, oh, what? They didn't fit, and go and put them on payroll for 10 months and then realize you didn't get it because you didn't follow the rules. So be flexible with your the way that you're thinking about your initiatives as well. So hiring, training, market expansion, and R&D. Just know that if you are putting anyone on contract, the chances of you getting a grant are going to be slimmer than putting someone on payroll. So that's very important. If you aren't a registered business yet, make sure you register, because some of these grants will say you have to be around for at least a year or two before you can actually apply. If you are wanting to upskill yourselves for training, upskill your staff, there's money that ranges from 60 to 100% of those training costs to a maximum of $10,000 per person per year. That program is going to be rolling out again in January or February, and that would be for training that starts in the spring. It's called ETG, for those who want a name. Market expansion. I've said this in the past where I'm like, you know what? The government's not about giving money away to you if you just want to expand into Alberta from BC. Or to Ontario. And I'm now going to have to renege that and say, there's $50,000 for you guys to take your products to Alberta or to Ontario or Quebec or Nova Scotia, wherever you guys want. So there's a new program that just launched through IAFBC, and that's exactly what the fund is there for. So that's really unique. It's also there to help you expand internationally. So if you guys are looking at Europe, Asia, down to the States, if you guys are looking at the States, Mexico, whatnot, there are programs that will support that marketing. Going to trade shows. How many of you guys do trade shows? Okay, or want to do trade shows? Maybe it's a budget thing. So now here's some money for you guys to go and do it. And then tax credits, quality systems, anyone doing HACCP, anyone improving, kind of their quality systems for assurance, that's probably going to be important to you. So there are programs called agri insurance that you probably want to look into, and they might cover some of that cost of the audit, maybe minor capital expenditures with that one to ensure that you get your thermometers and your temperature testers and all that other stuff. So $7 billion in grants and tax credits for organizations in Canada. This stat is from 2013. How much of that piece of the pie are you getting? How many of you guys actually apply for grants now? Hands up, way up, good. And how many of you guys, with your hands up, enjoy the process? Okay. But if you aren't applying for grants, then your competitors in this room clearly are. So if not you, then who? Okay? You guys want full service stuff? We do full service from the research, application, final reconciliation, you name it. We take it from start to finish, and our success rate is over 90% at Granted. If you want a DIY, we've created that, and it's going to be launching towards the end of this year, early next year. And so that will not only tell you what grants you qualify for now, but it will also give you information when new grants come up. It'll actually send you either text or email notifications to say, hey, this one just came up. You probably want to put an application in. So sign up on that website if you want more information when it's ready to launch. We'd be happy to have you guys beta test it. It's going to be free for the first little while, so that's a good incentive as well, because we'd love your feedback on that. And that's me.
Awesome.
Thank you. Free money. Go get it.
Awesome. So I guess I'm going next. Perfect. There's my mug shot. Okay, perfect. How are you guys doing? Doing good? Great event. This is actually my first time here. It's awesome. It's an open bar. I can't complain. So a little bit about myself. My name is Ray Holgato. I'm a senior district manager with ADP Canada. We're the market leader in the HR and payroll space. Who has heard of ADP before? Awesome. It's good. So I have spent 3.5 years with ADP, and my role is I consult for small to medium-sized businesses, which I would say mass majority fall within. And my job is to help educate these types of businesses on how to better manage their people. And I'm going into more detail about how exactly we do that, okay? And just in the spirit of this event, I do prefer a lager over an ale, okay? But in my 3+ years, I've noticed 3 things. With all the businesses I've worked with, these are the 3 things that they are put of utmost importance. Number 1, cash flow and business growth, which undoubtedly is true. They want to make sure they have an ample cash on hand in which they can make strategic moves for growth, purchase additional equipment, perhaps even introduce a new product line, but they want to make sure they have the cash on hand to make these moves. A second thing is around talent management, trying to find the right people to work for your organization, how to keep them happy, how to retain them, and to make sure that they're engaged in the workforce, okay? The this third thing I've noticed as well is around risk management and the importance of that. Many business owners don't want to be blindsided by any fines or penalties or anything of that nature, which inevitably actually relates to the other 2 objectives. For those unexpected costs, for example, related to fines or penalties, it affects talent management. It also affects your ability to manage your cash flow better, okay? Now, in the beginning, I thought that all 3 of these things were only pertaining to, let's say, a startup, okay? But over time, what I noticed is it's actually common throughout every stage of a business, okay? Undoubtedly. And all 3 of these objectives are extremely important in terms of growing your business, going from a startup brewery, all the way to becoming, one of the next Labatt's, okay? So begs the question, what are other businesses doing? What are they doing to address those key business objectives while also facilitating growth, okay? And what clients are doing, or what businesses are doing, is they are looking at outsourcing. So I just want to go into detail why a company would even outsource. The thing is, with payroll and HR, for example, it's an administrative burden. It's stuff that in which it should be delegated, and it's essentially the business owner should be focusing on what really matters, and which is growing it and focusing on sales, okay? So for example, by outsourcing through companies like ADP, you're focusing, these are essentially the advantages. Number 1, receive industry expertise. I would say about 90% of the clients I speak with don't even have an accounting background, a payroll background, an HR background, so they're just thrown to the fire, and generally they wear many hats. But by outsourcing it to experts in that field, they can focus on what really matters, okay? Number two, the second advantage is you get best practices. The thing is, companies like ADP, we know what's going on out in the marketplace. We ensure that you have a competitive advantage versus your other competitors. And we also ensure that you're within up to date with the current standards, procedures, and protocols around HR and payroll, which is very important, okay? And the third advantage is you get best of breed technology, okay? So what I mean by that is, what I've noticed, a lot of companies are using 1, 2, 3, 4 different tools to do payroll and HR, when they can consolidate that and reduce the amount of back-end workflow. And they can consolidate it, which inevitably improves efficiency and productivity as well, okay? Thank you. So I just want to quickly highlight what well over 60,000 businesses in Canada are essentially looking to ADP towards to alleviate. So in detail, what it looks like is from a payroll perspective, what we do is we automate the entire payroll process. So what I mean by that is we automate the tax calculation parts all the way down to automating the tax payments to the CRA. We also address the direct deposit, electronic payments into each employee's accounts. We also handle the ROEs and T4s, okay? So at a very high level from a payroll perspective. Now from an HR perspective, we equip expertise and best practices around HR, best practices. So what we've been seeing on our end, an influx in questions around recreational marijuana in the workplace, okay? Due to the legalization of it a couple days ago. So we've been getting an influx of questions. What are the rules and procedures around that? What should be the correct legal jargon I should be putting in my employee handbook? Well, by leveraging the expertise of someone like ADP, they can ensure that they're playing in the right field and they have the right jargon and the right means to protect themselves, okay? We also assist as well from a time and labor standpoint. So we improve accuracy from a time collection standpoint, okay? And automating that. I still encounter businesses in which they receive the hours from their employees via a pen and paper, which is extremely old school, and it's also prone to human error. So we assist on that front. Benefits administration, what I mean by that is RSPs, dental and medical. We help facilitate the payments and automatic payments to those third-party providers, and Chloe's actually going to talk about RSPs and whatnot and group benefits and all that. And the last thing that we assist as well is on the talent management front. So how to engage, how to motivate your workplace and to retain the top talent, okay?
Awesome.
Bingo. So next steps, if you guys haven't already, RBC and ADP, we're actually doing a raffle downstairs. So if you haven't already, you can certainly drop your business cards. We've got some great prizes. And if you have any further questions pertaining to what exactly that looks like, you can certainly reach out to me, okay?
Awesome. Thanks, Ray. So this kind of ties into one of the biggest topics that whenever I go into the market, people are talking about. They say, where are all these talented brewmasters? Where are all these talented workers? Where can I get quality labor, top talent? How can I keep them happy? Where are they? You see help wanted signs everywhere. And one of the biggest things that we see is, yes, medical dental plans, absolutely, bar none, are like the minimum that you can do in the industry. But I also know that giving someone, let's say, a $5,000 or $10,000 beer budget if they're your brewmaster is probably not the best way for you to be using that investment back into your employees. So one of the best ways that we find is actually taking it up a notch. And it not only saves you on the tax side as well, but being able to offer financial wellness programs to your employees. It's one of the biggest things that you can do to not only reduce the stress in their lives, but it's going to boost your productivity because now they're not stressed and not working on your dime. So this number is $350 billion. Who would like to see their bank account at that? Everyone in this room, and if you're not putting your hand up, you're probably not telling the truth. No, this number actually represents the lack or the loss in productivity for North America in one fiscal year. In 1 year, $350 billion is lost to employees being stressed out or not working. This doesn't include health or anything like that where they're off work. 75% of those employees, at a minimum, are stressed out about their finances. So how are they going to be crafting your best brew if they are worried about that credit card, or how they're going to be able to pay their mortgage, or how do I get my kids to go back into soccer, or any of those issues? And one of the ways that we've been able to say, you know what, we're not only going to reduce your stress and again boost your productivity, is offering different wellness programs. And as Ray mentioned, yes, it can come down to specific types of products. So some people might be familiar with, let's say, a group RSP or matching contributions. But what we've realized and what the industry now states is that people actually want financial wellness education at their workplace. One, because you guys are paying for it. But two, because when they're off the clock, they're going home to their kids and their family, and they don't have really any other time or headspace to do anything else. So one of the benefits that we are able to provide in the workplace with bank at work activities is providing financial experts literally to your doorstep to meet one-on-one with each of your employees. Now, people always go, man, this sounds like another cost. Why would I be investing in this? I always say, okay, think of your number one employee. It might be your brewmaster. Don't think of yourselves in this one, but think of that person. Let's say that person makes $100,000 a year. Okay? The average cost, if you lost that person, the average cost to you as a business owner to find a new person, to hire them, your productivity's down, it's going to take you at least 12 months to get them active, is 75% of their salary. That just means when that person walks out the door, not only do they take the expertise with them, but they take $75,000 right out of your bottom line. Depending on how many employees you have, $75,000 investment back into your company is going to boost your productivity by a minimum of 80%. What that means is every single day, every single one of your employees is taking a minimum, and you know your employees better, so I'm sure there's some exceptions. This isn't everybody. But what the statistics state is that 1 hour of every employee's day is taken up to financial stress. Let's say you have 50 employees. 40 hours a week times 50 employees, it adds up fast. So if there's a way to do a small investment on the uptick, swimming upstream, and be able to have that filter down so now your employees are happy and healthy, all it's gonna do is make sure that at the end of the day, your bottom line is so much stronger. And it's also gonna give you a really good image, especially in BC craft brewing. I mean, man, BC loves the fact that we love our brands, and we love brands that are socially responsible, right? People get behind brands because they take care of their employees. And I know a lot of you as employers, you can probably think back to maybe one of your first companies that either treated you really well and did something special, or maybe they didn't. That will probably sit with you, right? But more importantly, the people that are going to be walking through your door are going to be looking to see what you have, because there's a lot of craft brewers, which means there's a lot of competition, which means there's a lot of opportunities for these highly skilled people to pick you over your competition. So how can you make yourself an employer of choice? It's not rocket science, thank God, because I wouldn't be doing it. But you have to attract those top talented people by being able to say, I am going to offer retirement wellness programs. Has anyone in this room ever broached the subject with their business development team to be able to say, I've considered benefits on top of medical dental? Guess who is doing it? The big companies, all of them. And it doesn't mean necessarily something traditional as a pension, but it does mean that having this type of information to travel with when you're having your business meetings, as long as you're making a conscious decision to not offer it or to offer it, that's all anybody can ask, right? Because we know that our margins are going to be pretty slim as we're moving forward. So any additional area where we have to spend our money better be worthwhile, otherwise we're not going to do it, right? So always just make sure that you're balancing the cost and the investment opportunity to be able to engage those employees. Because you know that you have some employees that work for you that are like family. You know they're engaged, you know they got your back, they are working for you 100% of their time. Well, if there's a way to increase that to 80% of your employee base, why not take that opportunity? So 53% of individuals, which is like a 50-50 shot really, but become more loyal to their organization. But if you're able to retain that top talent for an extra year, and then they buy in and drink the Kool-Aid, or the beer rather, then you're going to be able to keep them on and continue to grow your business. The last thing you want is people jumping ship and potentially sharing your trade secrets with other people, right? So if we can get them in the door and keep them happy and healthy, it's the best way. So this pretty much sums up what a holistic wellness program looks like. It's not all about you have this specific account and your employer's putting money into it. That's an awesome start. That is a really, really good start, because you put a lot of skin in the game because it's your business, but you're saying, I'm going to invest a little bit more in my employees to get a heck of a lot more out from my employees. Because remember, if your employees are just coming in for a paycheck, they are not doing you a service. They are doing you a disservice. You want employees to be your ambassadors. You want them, when they are out here, to be advocating and literally wearing your shirts going, I work here, this is an awesome place to work. Get their friends and qualified individuals to come in and try to get hired too, right? So just remember, this is a way for you to elevate your game. And if no one in this room is currently doing it now, I guarantee you, if one of you did a new benefit plan, whatever it was, and you put it online, if you had one employee, a new hire, it would show up to yours first. It would show up to yours first. You would get kick at the can at the first cream of the crop. That's all I'm saying. So if you want to do a plan like this, awesome. If it's an investment, but you see it as a cost, that's not a problem, because this stuff can start at its nascence when you guys start your business, or it can be over time where you're like, you know what, in 5 years, this is where we want to be, right? We want to be a main stage player. But just know that deep down when you're doing your business planning, make the conscious decision to have this discussion internally and say, okay, if I really lost Mary, my brewmaster, what would that actually feel like? And when you start to run those numbers, man, that hits home for sure. So if you have any additional questions that you're like, I don't know what this chick is talking about, it really doesn't make any sense to me, she's been talking really passionately, but I don't quite understand, we do have a booth downstairs, and I'm here to literally just be a support for you guys. If you're interested about pensions versus something else, or maybe some of you are retiring soon, or there's business transitioning happening, and you have questions about that, please come down and have a conversation with us. We're here just to be an additional resource to you. It's not literally, you can just come and talk to us. It's not like, oh my God, you have to sign this document because you're coming into a bank. Nothing like that, okay? We just, like I said, want to be here to help you. So with that, I'm going to pass it off to my RBC colleague, Jessica. Who's next?
Perfect.
There you go, m'lady.
Okay, perfect. Hi guys, I'm Jessica Ostergaard. I recognize a few faces in the room. I've been in equipment finance for about 13 years, with RBC for about 5. Very high level. We have 5 equipment finance specialists in BC. We provide leasing for almost every industry. This is my favorite. We do about over $200 million a year in BC just in leases. So a lot of people don't even know that RBC has a leasing business. We're the largest leasing business out of any major Canadian bank. We've got almost $5 billion now, I think, on assets in the book, or on books, excuse me. I know you guys actually don't care about this high level stuff. It's just the one slide that I'm going to show you. You probably want to know, well, what can we do for you? So, how can RBC help you? So RBC Leasing is part of the overall RBC commercial banking. So I work directly with Mike Sally and other commercial account managers throughout the Lower Mainland who would be helping you guys with all of your other day-to-day banking. Specifically for breweries, we offer leasing for brewing equipment, canning lines, delivery trucks, coolers, etc. The one thing that I think really differentiates us from other leasing companies is that we're able to lease leasehold improvements and tenant improvements. So you guys know that when you're expanding a brewery or even starting up a new brewery, the costs of the plumbing and the electrical and all that, that's a huge component. So when you're looking at financing by way of lease, just know that all of that can be included and wrapped up into the overall lending. We can do brand new equipment. We can do sale and leasebacks on existing stuff. So you may have thought a year ago, okay, I've got the cash that I'm just going to pay for this tank. And then, oh, okay, maybe there's a new opportunity, or you want to invest in Group Advantage, and you want to get some of that equity out. We will refund 100% of an equipment invoice up to 12 months. So to us, even if you've been using it for 12 months, it's still new. We also can look at equipment that's older than a year. We can look at what that book value is for you and try to look at a sale and leaseback arrangement that can pretty much give you guys back the money that you've put in. We can also look at paying out to other lenders if that's a situation. Some clients I know will often start out with BDC, and they're great. And after a few years, we can look at bringing it over to RBC at a cheaper interest rate, per se. So I've done leasing where we've taken out BDC debt or other financial institution debt. Also, too, one of the main reasons why clients lease is because of the income tax benefit. So you're writing off the lease payment for income taxes versus depreciation and interest, but you would want to definitely talk to your accountant around tax strategies to that. I'll give you a bit of a rundown. Maybe see what slide it's on. Okay. Don't read too much. These slides are too busy now that I think about them. I made them last night. So I'll give you a quick rundown of sort of why I think that we're best in the marketplace. So I don't know if you guys know what, obviously you know what progress payments are. You know that when you order an equipment, whether it be Ripley's or specific, you're always going to have to put a deposit down on that equipment to get it even in the line to manufacture for you guys. So we have the ability to do what's called progress payment agreements. So you would get your approval, and then RBC Leasing would actually pay your supplier those deposits. The lease does not start at that point. A lot of other leasing companies will actually have to start repaying the equipment from the moment any payments go out on it. RBC would pay your deposits, whether it be up to 50%, and then you just pay interest only up until that equipment's built, it's delivered, it's installed, it's up and running. RBC pays the balance, and then at that point, your actual lease begins. So we don't get you to start repaying your equipment prior to you getting it, right? Because it's not working for you at that point, so you're not going to start making payments on it. Progress draws to contractors as well. So when you're doing the expansions or build outs, contractors, plumbers, electrical, they're all going to need to be paid every month as it goes. We have a program that allows RBC to pay those payments on your behalf. Again, it's all interest only as well until everything starts. So I've had multiple different deals where we've got a component of plumbing, we've got a component of GC, we've got a component of equipment. The whole project can take a year. It's all interest only during that while everyone's getting paid. The end of the day, okay, here we go, all the bills are in. Say it's $1 million, and then the repayment starts at that point. So it's a really cool program. Not a lot of people know about it. Not a lot of other banks or leasing companies do that as well. All right, where was I? Totally not looking at my slides. There we go. Our rates are fantastic. We base our rates based on your relationship with the bank, right? So it's all driven by your financial performance. We don't charge any more for leasing than we would for term debt financing. So we're very, very competitive. We're also industry specialists, as you can see by us being here. You would be working with a commercial account manager who is a specialist in this industry. You'd be working with a leasing specialist who's a specialist in this industry. Our underwriters that look at our equipment, they're very aware of the resale values of the equipment. So industry specialization really sets us apart, I believe, from other institutions. And we've got a dedicated team of RBC partners in all sorts of areas, as you can see just even from this panel. Okay. What do people choose leasing? 100% financing, usually a big one. We can generally do up to 100% of the equipment cost. Our leases are capital leases, which is important to know. We do not want to own this equipment at the end. The intention is you lease it from us, and then you buy it out for a fixed residual or a purchase option of $1. So they're very transparent. You know what your buyout is at the end of the term, and you are responsible for making it because we don't want the equipment back. If there is situations where some clients may need early repayment or they know in 3 years they might be moving to a new location, we can be very flexible as how we structure our financing contracts that allows you to get out early should you need to. Also, there's no upfront sales tax with the lease because RBC, being the legal owner of the asset, has to pay the sales tax. For brewing equipment, it's not really a big deal because you guys are all PST exempt anyways for production, but you don't have to come up with that 5% GST. And income tax strategies, again, with the lease payments, and then unlocking the equity, paying out higher debt lenders, as I talked about before. So, equipment finance is not really a mystery, but there's definitely pros and cons with different companies. So if you guys want any more information at all, feel free to come find me down at the RBC booth with the rest of us. Mm-hmm. And I'll pass it on.
Great.
Good.
Excellent. My name's George Gillis. I'm a partner with the Newport Group, Chartered Professional Accountants. I'd just like to say we've had clients work with Jessica, and she's very good at what she does. So just want to pass that on. Good. As I said, we look after a fair number of breweries, from fairly big boys to little tiny fellas. And from the finance point of view, it's really clear to see the ones that are successful and the ones that start growing and move and move and move and move and move. You might have heard the saying, companies don't plan to fail, they fail to plan. And in this business, it's just as risky as any other sort of retail business out there that you're looking to go into. There's a reason why the big companies, and I'm talking about the big companies, whether it's Apple, whether it's any of the companies doing hundreds of millions of dollars, why they put projections together at the beginning of the year. Companies, say doing $2, $3, $4, $5 million, we see them and they come, they've never done a projection before. The only time they ever do a projection is when the bank needs one. And I always say the projection shouldn't be for the bank, it should be the roadmap that you guys want to follow. So if we sell this much beer at the end of the year with this much gross profit and this much overhead, we should make this much money. And how much do we want to grow by every year? To me, that's not the banks. They might like that information, but we're way more interested in the success of our clients and for you guys to be thinking, how are we going to get there? So many clients, when they come to us, they've never done these before, or they're so outrageous that we're going to do $8 million in sales our first year and 16 the second year. Well, you're probably not. So again, the first big mistake that the lenders or clients make, they fail to prepare annual projections. Set those targets. It's like aiming for a dartboard. If you close your eyes, you might not even hit the dartboard. If you open your eyes, you got a better chance of hitting the bullseye. The second mistake we see our breweries make is they fail to prepare monthly financial statements. They've got a bookkeeper, I think her name's Joanne. I know she looks after our payroll. We send her the stuff most of the time. And Joanne's our bookkeeper. She says everything's fine, or she doesn't say anything, so we assume everything's fine. That's not usually the way it is. I hate to say it, but bookkeepers are bookkeepers. Professional accountants are professional accountants. You need someone in your industry to be looking at your stuff on a monthly basis. It's no good to look at it at the end of the year. We have some clients, it's a big day when they come to see George because they find out how well or poorly they did. I'd rather know 3 months into the year that our margins are sliding, or our revenue's sliding, or our cash is sliding, so we can make the changes early on. So again, we want to prepare those monthly financial statements on a timely basis, not 6 months or 8 months after the month. Number 3, sometimes you guys will get the financial statements and you'll look at them, you'll look at the top line, it says we had $80,000 of sales this month, and bottom line it said we made $10,000. So that's either a good or a bad month. But again, we want to make sure you understand what you're looking at. Are you looking at trends? Are margins trending up? Are margins trending down? Again, what we want you to do, we meet with a lot of clients on a monthly basis, some on a quarterly basis. And the reason we find they do much better is because at the end of every month, they know exactly where their business is. They don't have to guess. They know exactly where it is. They know exactly what the risks they're coming up. They know the issues they got to deal with. They know the things they have to be dealt with. They're not waiting 6 months or 12 months to find out what they have to do. Number 4, the next mistake breweries make, and we were mentioned a little bit already, was the shred credits. Again, they're not massive credits in most situations, but it could be $25,000 or $50,000 in shred credits you guys are eligible for. And again, most breweries that we deal with, they don't understand that, and we suggest it. Man, it's a good idea. We'll do it. Number 5 is you don't make a successful business by lots of sales. You make successful businesses by lots of cash. It's not about how much beer you're giving away. It's not how little you charge for it. We got to have enough cash at the end of the year to make sure that we make the profit and the return that we want to make. And it kind of ties into the next phase is you have to determine early on is your brewery, are you creating a job for yourself, or you want to create a business that we can sell down the road? And it sounds, it sounds kind of corny maybe, but it's two very different things. If you're going to create a job for yourself, you're going to keep to a certain size, and you're going to work, and you're going to be doing most of the work. If you're going to create a business that's going to have value at the end so you can sell it, it's got to be something that can run on its own. So if you've got a business that's doing $4 million and it's running on its own, and then George has a business doing $1 million and everything's George, which business is worth more? Well, obviously the one where George isn't a key guy. So again, by doing these 5 things, it's going to be taking some of the risks out of it for you. So what are we saying here? You can't manage what you don't measure. You know, it'd be like making beer and just, chucking some hops in and chucking this in and chucking this in and not measuring and then trying to figure out how we're going to do it again. So what should you be doing? We want you preparing 12-month projections, monthly projections. We can talk about 24, 36 in a little more less detail, but I want to know exactly where we're going to be at the end of the year. How are we going to be there? How are we going to get there? How are we going to grow? We want you to do some analysis of your financial results. And I'm not talking, we don't want you to become accountants. You're good at what you do, but have someone on your side that can help you and spend an hour with you going over, taking you up in a helicopter every month to take a look at where your business is really at. Again, number 4, we want meetings monthly with your accountants. And as I say, not quarter, not semi-annually or annually. Ideally, if you can meet monthly, just to keep you up to speed. So you're up in that helicopter working on the business, not working in the business. You want to be keeping your key investors updated on a regular basis. Some of these guys are investing $250,000, $500,000, whatever the amount is for your investors. We want to keep them up to speed on what's going on so they don't get antsy. We might need a cash call. Where are we going to get the cash call from? It's not, most investors that we deal with, they don't like that phone call the night before saying we need $20,000 to meet payroll. Doesn't work. So anyway, keep them invested. And number 6, for some of you, you've only just started the business. Other ones, you've been in business for maybe 4 or 5 years. How are you going to get out? It's easy getting into a business. It's kind of like buying a stock. You buy a stock, I want 100 shares of this, it's easy to buy it. So it starts going up and I don't want to sell it, it's going to go higher. Then it starts going down, I can't sell it now, it's gone too low, it's going to go higher. It's really hard to sell, there's no plan around it. So, we talk to our clients, whether they're 25-year-old, young guys getting into the business or they're 65-year-old men in a business. Our question is, how are we going to get out of this? And in this industry, it's such a, it's a relatively new industry. It's an important, you're investing, you've got investors investing, $1.5 million into it. How are we going to get out? And what we have to be doing is, once we figure how we're going to get out, we have to be building your business to get to that position where someone will want to take you out. So with that, I want to say thank you for having us, and I wish you guys the best of luck. It's businesses are doing well are a ton of fun. Businesses that aren't doing well are a ton of headaches. So be on the right side of the track here. Thank you.
Thanks so much, George. We do have some time for question and answer, so if anybody does have any questions, now would be an ideal time, unless everyone's very shy after lunch, after having a beer. Yeah, go ahead.
This is a question sort of for you, but
Sure.
Any of you can answer it if you know. What ratios or financial metrics do you think are important to look at on a monthly basis if you're a small brewery?
Well, you want to keep your inventory turning over, that's for sure. Number 1. You're always looking at things like current ratios, like how much, that's your short-term health, your current assets, mainly cash, and your current liabilities. Your debt-to-equity ratios, how much debt do you have versus equity? The big thing is too, especially with with the banks, some of the ratios we make sure our clients are looking at on a monthly basis are the ratios that are in your loan agreements. Because put it this way, even if ratios start going offside, a lot of times we have a good enough relationships with our lenders that we'll be in touch with them to let them know, because they're like anybody else. They don't want to be blindsided at the end of the year that you got a debt to equity ratio of 22 to 1. gonna fly. You know what I mean? And then the other piece is just even your, especially getting going initially, your cash flow. I'm not sure what kind of cash flow tools you guys have to measure. It's, because I mean, when you start, it's not like a whack of cash coming in to begin with, and you've got loan payments and you've got, payroll and all the other overhead coming out and all that. And, so what we would tend to do is, start working, gradually building metrics. You know what I mean? So, you're going to start with several key ones, but companies after a while, they've been around 5-6 years, they're, sometimes we'll build metrics just to measure things we want to measure at that point in time,
And if you guys are wanting to know more of the specific, what the bank's actually looking for startup breweries, talk to Mike, because Mike there, he's a commercial lender in a commercial, but he can, if you were looking for actual specifics, talk to Mike.
Go ahead.
I got a couple questions or different areas. One, just quickly, is with shred claims. I've heard it mentioned a lot, especially in this context. We've also looked into it pretty extensively with different consultants and through our accountants, everything. There's a lot of talk that there's a lot of money in shred and different things, and we hear about that. But when you kind of get into things, it doesn't always pan out the same way. So I'm always just curious. Can you give us any perspective on what the feedback we've gotten is shred's changed a lot in recent years? I don't know what your guys' perspective is, but you hear a lot of money was given out under shred guidelines before, and I don't know if anybody in the room has more experience with that than us, but we were kind of really encouraged to look into this, and it's been a lot of dead ends just in that capacity. So anybody can speak to that?
Yeah, I think it's on a sort of a case-by-case basis, like very, very small craft brewers. I mean, it's got to be worthwhile doing it. Once you get to a certain size and you've got more, especially more salaries going into it, your overheads get bigger, so we can start applying, that 1.65% of that. Machinery, we can't claim that anymore, but some direct costs we still can. So, I mean, you have to, when I say there's lots of cash, it depends on the size of the business too, right? I mean, you're not gonna spend $10,000 to make $3,000, obviously, but if you're not going to get a $300,000 or $400,000 shred like we do for some clients, because usually the outlay's just not there, right? You don't have enough resources dedicated to the special work, right?
Can you maybe speak specifically to like the qualifiers around what shred is funding right now? Because I think it has changed a lot. I think people have got funding for equipment and different things in the past, but it sounds like from the feedback we've gotten that it's changed quite a bit. So can you guys speak to like what shred is currently funding and with more specifics? Because I think what we hear in these conferences is that like, hey guys, there's lots of money for you. The whole industry, like there's stuff, but like we go away and we look into it. I have spent a lot of time actually doing it with the result being zero. So I'd love just, if I'm missing something, that'd be great. For other people that are interested in those things, I think it's good to have the context of what you're looking into so that you're just prepared.
Yeah, what I might suggest is that we talk later. We use an outside firm, and they've had tremendous success in getting sure. I mean, they're going to be audited for sure. You know that. But I mean, and that's part of sort of what I talked about before is getting going and have all of your accounting and all that set up correctly so it can be when they do come and audit it, you've got all the information right there for it, because I mean, typically they will, especially their first one through it. So maybe we'll talk after.
Sure, yeah.
I can maybe add a little bit, because we see that also with grants as well. So I will tell you, in 1995, people got IRAP claims for $100,000 to build a website. Okay, I'm just saying that, like, in terms of what the government's looking for is what's innovative. Yeah, in 1995, that was probably super innovative to even have a website. Nowadays, it's like you can whip up a website on your own with nothing in an hour. And so what we've heard on the shred side, and we don't deal with shred directly, but we've seen it with other grants, is what is that that piece of missing information that you really need to test and do R&D on in order to be successful for that particular process. I think the other thing that's more challenging now is is we're finding that a lot of things are shared online. There's a lot of processes that are kind of a little bit more out there where people understand what the processes are. And so the government knows that. The government knows that like what you're doing is actually, that's just something that's happening in Europe already. Or there's already a bunch of breweries that are doing this in Alberta or in Ontario. And so they're not going to give you money for something that, yeah, to you, it might be like, hey, we've never done this before. But for another, you know, for someone who's in the industry and understands the industry, they're gonna be like, that's not actually anything new. And so we see that with Shred, we see that with IRAP, we've heard a lot of that. So when you look at it, you really need to look at it in that lens. And the government, you know, like it'd be great for me to be like, oh, I don't know how to look for grants. Give me money to figure out how to look for grants. Well, they're not gonna do that. To them, it's operational.
Yeah, and I'll just add one more thing to that. It's totally opposite than it used to be 15 years ago. There was a numbers, when you got audited, they would tend to look more at the numbers. Now when the audit's done, the key thing is the write-up, the description. That's what that's where guys are making the difference, right? It's how the process and what have you done different in the process, how is it described? And that's why there's so many, you're getting a lot of outside guys now doing it, right? Because it's that piece of it that you have to hook into, because if it's not proven through the scientific description, the numbers mean nothing, right? And it's got to be, it's got to be on a project by project basis too, not sort of overall.
Second question. This is a different, unrelated question. I guess the other piece, we work with RBC, and I think if someone can speak to the challenges of starting a new business and the threshold for when you become a commercial banking client, and there's different opportunities when we're talking about leasing opportunities. If you're a new business in your first couple of years, some of those things are not available to you because you're not a commercial client. So it'd be just good for people to know that because we've been through that process as a new business starting.
Yeah.
And so just if you can speak to what's required.
Definitely.
Yeah, to the different accessing these things.
Yes, we have commercial lending, and then we also have just our business banking as well. So it usually goes by the overall lending requirements. So anything over $750,000, Mike, jump in here if I'm incorrect. Anything over $750,000 is commercial lending. So it goes based on the amount that you borrow.
It also does not also contingent on your annual sales at being a certain level, because that's we've been communicated to us that if you're not at a certain threshold for annual revenue, you're not qualified for commercial banking services.
Each bank kind of breaks it up differently too, and there's no. Sorry, I'm speaking over, but there's really no what we would call like black line where above it this is commercial and below it this is business markets. Realistically, we try to find home of best fit. So the question is, the commercial platform's a little bit more expensive, but it's a lot more broad. So where are we placing you to best set you up for success? Realistically, I do a lot on commercial side with a smaller dollar value that might have been traditional, simply because we understand the industry really well. I'm industry specialized, and we've seen the growth. So I don't want to start with a client too that's 1 year from now going to be a commercial client and go through all the problems of, and so I don't mean to say problems, but all of the process of switching you from one platform to another. We'd rather make sure that you guys have everything at your fingertips right off the bat, just to make sure that you're in the right spot for your growth. So it's kind of a bit of a gray area. Often a lot of breweries do end up in the commercial side, though they might not fit the traditional dollar value framework. But it's a question of what types of facilities do you really need, and what do you need as a bank, and we want to make sure you set up properly. In the same vein, Jessica works with a lot of breweries on leasing, and leasing's a product that generally doesn't happen in the commercial side of the business. So that's another one of the reasons why we usually dabble in the smaller dollar values a little bit, and I say smaller because we can offer a little bit more to people who honestly need those products. And again,
Thanks,
more than happy to have any conversations offline with anybody. Advice costs nothing. We're here, for you guys. So please feel free if you have any questions for any of us.
Yeah. Do you want to touch on this Canadian small business loan as well?
What was the question?
Oh, sorry. Just you had said that how sometimes when you first start out, the leasing is not necessarily
no, just more that, and that's again, part of our experience is
Yeah.
that when we first started out, a number of these products weren't available because
Yeah.
you're not in commercial banking.
Okay.
So, and yeah, the kind of small business financing loan is typically a great starting point.
A great starting point. Yeah, exactly.
But it's still often you're in a small business financing
Yeah,
area which you don't have a lot of products available to you.
exactly.
One other thing that I will note about the CSBFL, and most brewers have dealt with it in some way, shape, or form, these are variable rate term loans.
Yeah.
So at some stage down the road, if the operational cash flow is there, we can look at re-advancing a new facility, often under a lease facility,
Yeah.
to take out that existing term loan. It actually comes at a better rate.
Yeah.
So we do that from internal loans. We do that from external loans as well. You know, if you're with another FI and you want another opinion, can we step in and take it out? Because it is more expensive debt. We understand that. So realistically, there are options. And as I say, I mean, RBC's become very comfortable with the business, and that's one of the reasons why we offer the commercial platform, generally at a lower dollar value in this industry than we would otherwise.
Perfect.
No other questions? Well, we're just at 3 o'clock, so we'll let you guys go. Come visit us downstairs and feel free to grab us if you do have any additional questions offline.
Thank
okay?
you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.